Okay, so at this point we have our view test working and passing. So now's a good time to pause and take a look and basically check in our code since we're in a working state. So if we see, we've got a few IDE files in this IDEA folder. Those are Android Studio files. We'll go ahead and check those in. And I'm actually going to remove the example unit test and instrumentation test. So we're going to go and delete this guy. And we'll go and delete this one. And do another git status. And at this point, we'll do a git add. And we're going to add everything. That's what that dot means. So there's some modified files, some deleted files. And well, the deleted is actually the main activity which I moved into the views. So that's how Git takes care of that. So I'm going to commit now. So we'll say that the what did we actually do? We handled the choose button click. Choose button click handled in view. Okay, so now let's continue. So we're handling the button click, and we'll go ahead and launch this so we see what it looks like. While that launches, we will continue with our tests. So at this point, what we want to do is we want to perform some action in the presenter. So the presenter has this handle choose button click, and it doesn't do anything right now. So what we want to do is call, perform some logic. We really just want to the second activity. So we're not going to do much other than call the view back, which is fine. It may sound kind of weird, and we don't have a view object right now, but we'll imagine that it's there. So we're going to say view dot navigate to chooser. Okay. So let's go and get that reference to the view. So this is going to be an iMain view, and we're going to inject it in the constructor. All right, and obviously we don't have this method yet, so actually we'll go back to the test-driven development way of doing things. In this case, we're now in the presenter. We want to test the presenter. So in this case, the presenter is going to call methods on the view. So we want to mock the view in this case and just verify. So here we're going to use Mockito, and we're going to mock the view. And actually I said that I was going to show you the other way of doing things. So rather than use the annotation, we'll set up the mock here. So iMain view, actually I've already declared it there. So the view is going to be a mock. So we're going to mock, and we need to statically import that. So we're going to mock the iMainView.class. Okay, and then we inject the view here. All right, so any method that we call inside the presenter on the view will be verified here. So we want to call the handle choose button click method, and we're hoping that that now calls a method on the view. So we're going to verify the view, and we don't have any methods here. Remember, we're going to make it up. So we're going to make up one called navigate to chooser. All right, and of course it's failing because we need to actually create the method. So we're going to go to the interface and add the navigate to chooser method, and we're going to implement it. And we're implementing this inside of the main activity, which is our only view at this point. So here's where we want to, actually do the launching of the other activity, but we're going to hold off on that. So we've implemented this. Now up here we have our main presenter. So we need to pass it now a view object, which is our activity. So we can just pass this since we implement iMainView right here. Okay, so that's working, or not working, that's not complaining. So now we're going to run this test. Now this doesn't run on the device, it's going to run on the JVM, so this should be super quick. And sure enough, here it passes. Okay. All right, so now it doesn't actually do anything, so we need to go and implement the actual launching of the activity. So the way we're going to launch the activity is with an explicit intent. Now, I like to grab the intent from the actual activity that we are going to navigate to. So in this case, we don't actually have it yet. So I'm going to create this in a minute. So let's go and create this in the views package. We're actually going to create a new activity. So this, if we create the activity here, we'll do an empty one. It's going to add the activity to the manifest for us. So this is a good way to add things. So we're going to call it chooser activity. We'll leave the layout as activity chooser. We do not want it as the launcher activity. We do want it to be backwards compatible, so we'll finish that. It'll create it. Yes, we want to check both of these files into Git, and we're going to let Android Studio and Gradle build this. Yeah, we want to import that. I think it's building. I don't know. We need to import it. Okay. All right. So now we have this, and what I want to do now is add a public static method that will return an intent that will create or that will launch this activity. So we'll call it get intent, and it's going to take a context, and that context will most likely be another activity. So here we're going to do an intent, and we're going to use the context, and then we're going to use this class. Okay, we've got this explicit intent to create the chooser activity. And here if we needed to, we could pass data, and actually we do want to pass data. We want to pass some data, and we'll just return it, and we'll add the data in the other activity. All right, so we return that. So now back in main activity, we get our intent, and we want to start it for a result. Starting it for a result will allow us to retrieve the chosen color. We need an intent, which we got, and a request code. So the request code is going to be chooser request, and we're actually going to put this in a new file that is for constants. So we'll keep all the constants in a Java class called constants. We'll add it to Git, and here we're going to do a public static final int chooser request equals 1. All right. So that is what we are going to use as our request value. All right, so starting this activity for a result means that when it returns, we want to handle that result. So we want to do we want to override the onActivity result, and we're going to let Android Studio help us out. There we go. Protected void onActivity result. And we want that. So we'll call this super method and then handle the result. We only want to handle the OK response. So if the result code is OK, result OK, then we'll handle it. And we want to check for the request code too. So if the request code equals our constants.chooserRequest, then we're going to call the presenter method. And the presenter method will be handle chooser result. Okay, so at this point we actually want to pass some data into the chooser result, and so what we should do right now is figure out what data we want. We have 3 buttons. We want them to choose one of them. It's just a 1, 2, 3. Which button did they choose? So we're going to use an enum, and their colors. This will kind of conflict with some other classes out there, but we'll call it colors, just so it doesn't conflict. And it's going to be an enum. We'll add it to Git, and the colors are just going to be red, green, and blue. Okay. All right, and that's what we're going to pass here. So we're going to pull out the colors from the intent. So we're going to get the serializable extra, and we're going to grab it by name, but we want to put this in our constants. So we want to do constants dot chosen color, and we're going to add that color. It's going to be a string. So we're going to go into that and create a constant field. Okay. And this doesn't matter at this point because we're going to be using the variable. So that's looking good. So there's our color. We need to import the colors enum. Yeah, see, there's another colors in calendar contact. So we'll use our colors enum, and then that's what that's what I want to do here. I want to pass it to my method. So now we have to go and implement that. So we're going to create it in the interface, and then we're going to implement this method. All right, and right now we're not going to do anything because we're going to test it first. So what we're going to do here, just to simplify things and speed things up, we're going to we're gonna skip the view unit test, and we're going to call a method on the view, and we're going to test the presenter. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose to do different methods for different colors. So at this point, I want to first test, hey, is this color null? All right, so if it is, I want to call a view.handle error result, meaning something was wrong. All right, and then return. Okay. Otherwise, we're gonna switch on the colors. So we're gonna switch on this color, and we're gonna do case colors blue, and this we have to statically import it, And we're going to go ahead and create the missing switch branches too, which will save us a bit of time. And so at this point, we're going to do view.handle red result. Here we'll do view.handle green result. And here we'll do view.handle blue result. Okay, and each of these we're really just going to set a string as the message. So what we really could do is we could have one method that grabs a string and set the message with that. And let's go ahead and do that. So let's say that we're going to grab a color, or we're going to set a message. Let's do this up here. So we're going to set a message, and once we set that, in these 4 possible cases, we'll call this view method show or display message with our message. And this is actually going to let us demonstrate how do we get this message from the view. All right, so instead of handling these results, we're going to ask the view for a string from the resources. So we're going to say message equals view dot get error message, and we're going to do something similar to this. We're going to say message equals view dot handle or view dot get red message, and we'll do something similar here and here. And we will change this to blue, and we'll change this to green, and we'll display message. Okay, might not have been initialized, so we will set it to an empty string just in case. All right, so let's go ahead and implement all of these in our interface. So we'll say get the error message. So I'm just going to implement these interface methods, or I'm not implementing them, I'm going to create them. So there we'll get the red message, and the reason we're getting these messages from the view is because the view has access to the resource. We don't want to have to get an access to the resource inside of our presenter, so we ask the view for it. And then the display method is the one that's really going to do the work. Sorry about that. Alright, so now we've got 5 new methods that we need to implement in the main activity. Alright, and we're going to handle the chooser result. And let's go and implement them, but not add any logic or body to it. So let's implement all of those, and we'll just return null. That's fine. Okay, so now let's go back to our test. So let's go to the presenter test. So what we can test now is, we can test that calling a handle result with a color will call the appropriate get method on the view. So let's see what that looks like. So let's test the error case first. So we're going to test handle null result calls get error message. Again, we can come up with better names, but I like a nice descriptive one. So we're going to first mock the view, and we'll keep mocking at this method, or this way. We're going to create our presenter, new main presenter, view, and then what we want to do is call the method, and in this case we are handling a null result, which should be our error case. So we're going to verify that the view method display or get error message was called. So let's test that. Again, it's on the JVM, so this should be super fast. Okay, and then why don't we run all of them just to verify that we haven't broken anything. There we go. All right, let's take a look at another test. So we're gonna take a look at a test that might fail. I'm pretty sure this will fail. So let's say handle red result calls get red message. All right, so we've got the same stuff, but in this case we're going to pass it a color, and we'll do the color red. And what I expect is that the view will get the red message called. So let's check it out. Okay, so it did. What I also expect is that the view will call display message. Now, in this case, I am expecting some message. Now, what message am I expecting? I'm expecting the same message that the view returns. So what I want to really do here is somehow get the message from the view and display it here. Right? Something like this, view.getRedMessage. So I expect that to return. Now, what's going to happen is that I need to tell Mockito what to return, right? Because the view is empty. It's a mock. So we can use the when method and say when the view.getRedMessage is called, then return some string. This doesn't matter. This isn't our real string. This is what we're expecting here in the display message. So what I expect, and we'll make it a nice constant up here. So string expected equals red, and we'll put the expected result here. And I'm expecting that the display, sorry about that, will show that message. Because all I'm doing is getting the message from the view. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's run it and verify. Great. All right. So there we go. We can do the exact same thing for all of the other ones. So let's go ahead, and actually I don't even have to change the string, but I will. So I'll change this to green and test the green, and we'll just change this to green even though it's not necessary, but we do want to change the method name. Right, we want to call the green method, and then we want to do the same thing for the blue. All right, so what I forgot to do, and this is good, I did forget something, but we'll just say, oh, I didn't forget something, and we'll check it in the method, or the unit test. And so this should fail, hopefully. Okay, so one test failed. what was expected was the get green message was supposed to get called. However, the red message was called. Why was the red message called? The red message was called because I'm passing in the red color. So this is good. I expect to get the green message when the green color is passed. So let's rerun this test, and it should pass now. Great. All right, so those unit tests are good. All right, so the view, we'll come back to the view tests. I said I was going to come back to those. So let's go ahead and create these messages. So here I'm in the view, so I'm going to say the error message is just the word error, and then I'm going to extract each of these. So error message. This is why we need to get it from the view, because we don't want to have to do this inside of the presenter. So you chose red. Red message. And you chose green. And we'll extract that. Green message. And we'll do the last one for blue. You chose blue. Okay. And blue message. Okay. So we also want to display the message, and we want to display it in the text view, which we should already have. Chosen color text. Yes. So we already have a reference to this. We're just going to set the text. That's all. That's all it should do, right? The view should be super dumb. Shouldn't do any logic. All right. Recall that our presenter did all of the logic. Okay, and actually, so I have a bug, and I want to test it. So let's, maybe you spotted it already. Obviously, you already spotted it. So let's go back to the main presenter test. All right. So what I want to add is the error message, right? What I should do is when I should test the view get error message, I want to return some text, expected text, error, expected. Alright, so this should fail. I'm going to verify that the view display message should display the error message. What it should complain about is that it's going to be null. There we go. So if you see here, it says it wanted this to be invoked, but it was not invoked. Get error message was invoked, but this was not invoked at all. So it actually wasn't even null. So the reason is, back in my main activity, is that, in the presenter, was that this message, as you can see, is never used. So what I really want, we could do this. We'll get rid of the return. Actually, no. I'll leave the return, and I will, I'll get rid of the return. Yeah, I was gonna maybe see about another case, but so I'm just gonna change that so that now this method will get called. And let's go back to the presenter test. Here's our failing test. Run the failing test. This should pass, and then run all of the tests. Again, these are super quick, so there's no reason why you shouldn't run all of these tests right away. So we've got what we need now, and I just closed it, is let's wire up the chooser activity. And this one is going to be Again, we're going to change it from a relative layout to a linear layout, and I'm going to add 3 quick buttons. Okay, and we need to do orientation. We'll do it vertical again. And let's go back to the designer and grab 3 buttons. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we want to lay these out center vertically. So I want to grab the linear layout, and I want the children to be laid out centered vertically. So instead of layout gravity, I'm going to use the gravity, and I want to center vertically. So that's because of the children, right? That determines how the children are laid out. So let's go into each of these buttons. We'll change the text. We'll set our resources. So we'll set the text. So the red button text. And we'll change this to red button and blue, or I guess we'll do green. Green and extract green button text. Change this to green, and we will change this one to blue. Extract the resource, blue button text, and change the ID. Blue button, that's fine. Okay, great. So now we need to extract some of that. Well, we need to wire up the views, but before we do that, actually, we need to add some more interfaces and presenters. So we're going to add a new presenter interface. We'll add it to Git. We're going to add a new view, iChooser view. It's another interface. Add it to Git, and then we'll add a new presenter implementation, so chooser presenter, and we want the interface to be iChooser presenter. And you'll notice we don't have any models, which is okay. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into the chooser activity first. We've already got some code in here. We're going to bind the view. We're going to create the presenter. I've got iChooser presenter. Get a reference to that. And then we'll get some widgets here. It's 3 buttons. Red button. Green button. Blue button. And we're going to bind these to the view. Alright, so let's minimize our test results. Alright, red button equals button find view by ID. Okay, green button next. And the blue button last. Whoops. Alright, so we want to set click listeners on each of these, so we'll do that now. We'll implement on click listener for our activity. So now we've got our on click for the activity. Let's do this for the other buttons as well. And the blue button set on click listener to this. Okay, so now let's wire this up. Switch view.getID, and we'll do case owner dot ID dot red button. And I wonder if, no, I was just gonna see if Android Studio would let me choose other ones, but alright, so we'll set green button, break, case, blue button, break. Alright, so what do we want to do? We want to pass off and delegate these clicks to our presenter. So we're going to create a new method called handle red click. We'll do the same for green and blue. And we'll implement these methods. Whoop. Green. We're going to implement these in our view interface. Presenter interface. And finally, the blue one. Okay, so we can test some of these. We're going to add some presenter tests. So I'm going to add a new test class for chooser presenter tests. And we'll add that one to Git. We'll use the mock here for iChooserView, and we are going to do the test annotation. So public, actually, we need to make sure that we initialize the mocks. So we'll say public void setup init mocks this and import that. Okay, so this is all stuff we've done before. So I'm going to test some things. I want to test handle red click calls finish method on view. So this is, remember, this is in the presenter. So we're in testing that the presenter gets called correctly. So I want to, well, I'm verifying that the view gets called correctly. So I want to set this up. Now remember, I don't have the view yet in my chooser. So I want to add that. So I want to add a constructor that takes a chooser view. And we'll say this dot view equals view. And we'll create a field called view. Alright. And there's nothing wrong with final there. Alright, implement all of our methods. And what we want to do is our test now is happy. And what do we want to verify? We want to verify that a view method gets called, right? So we want to verify that we finish the view. And the finish method is going to be sending back the result of the click, which means that we're going to pass a color to it. So here I want to finish with color.red. Right? I expect colors, and I expect that to be called. So I need to create it in the view first. Then we're going to implement. I don't have the implementation. So I want to implement iChooserView. And there we go. All right. So here, I'm not going to implement this yet, but this is where we're going to set the result of the activity and then finish the activity. So let's go back to the test. We get the finish called, and we're going to run the test, and it's going to fail because we're not passing anything to finish yet. We're not even calling that method, right? We wanted view.finish, but it was never called. So let's go back to the presenter and let's call it. So we've got view.finish color, colors.red. All right, so that should be enough to satisfy this test. Perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and copy paste, and we'll do the same for blue and green. So we'll do green first. I think that's the order I've been doing this in. So handle green should call the finish method with green, and handle blue should call the method with blue. All right, let's call or run all of our tests. This should fail. All right, 3 tests were done, 2 failed, the blue and the green. Oh, actually, this should be calling the green click, and this should be calling the blue click. Right, so actually you see it says that the arguments were different. It was blue, it was actually called with red, and that's because I was calling the red method. So let's rerun these just so we can see that they don't get called, not with wrong parameters. So here we wanted it called, but it didn't get called. So we're going to go back to the presenter, and we're going to do the exact same thing in this as we did here. All right, so blue click should finish with blue, and green should finish with green. All right, so now our test should pass. Oops. Sorry about that. All right, there, we've got all of our tests. So what we actually want to do is implement the finish method. So what this is going to do, we need to package up the intent, or the color inside of a new intent. So we're going to just create a new empty intent. We're going to put an extra, and I think I already have, yep, chosen color is the key, and I'm going to pass in the red. And our enum is serializable, so it's going to work. Got to do a little extra work if we don't have a serializable class. All right, and then we're going to set the result. Again, I'm going to use my constants. Oh, no, I'm not going to use the constants. I'm going to use the result OK. And then I'm going to include my intent. And then I'm going to finish. And this should send back the result. And we've already wired up and tested the previous activity, so that should just work. All right. Now, what we should do is make sure that the view methods are correct. So let's add, before we actually run the app, we're going to add some view tests. So chooser view tests. We'll add it to Git. I'm just going to copy some of this stuff. I'm going to copy that. Import, and I want to copy this as well. We're not going to be able to use it as is, but we will be able to change this to chooser activity, and we're going to change this to chooser activity too. All right. So now let's run a test. We're going to test some things. Public void test red click calls handle red click in the presenter. All right. So again, I need to set up the whole dependency injection thing for the presenter. So let's go and do that. So recall that I want to inject the presenter. So we're going to do set presenter. In this case, it's a iChooserPresenter, and we'll say this dot presenter equals presenter. All right. So now in my view test, I'm going to get a reference to the activity. Chooser activity equals activity.getActivity, and I'm going to call set presenter, and we're going to mock this presenter, right? So actually, I'm going to do this iChooserPresenter equals mock iChooserPresenter.class and import the Mockito because I want to verify that the method gets called. So remember, I'm going to use the Espresso helper methods. I'm going to find the button with the ID red button, and I'm going to click. I'm going to perform a click on that method, or on that button. And I want to verify using Mockito, verify that the presenter handle red click was called. Alright, so this test should take a little bit longer to perform. So while it is compiling, I'm going to yank that test and do the same for blue. So this green. This was changed on disk. I'm going to keep my memory changes. Alright, so test passed. It was modifying some things. So click calls blue, green click calls the appropriate method. So green button, we're going to perform a click. And I'm hoping that the green click handler gets called. And then finally, blue. Alright, super simple. You can imagine we're doing a whole bunch of other cool stuff instead of just choosing 3 colors, but we get the idea. Blue button, and then I want to make sure that the blue button is clicked. Alright, so it's going to run these 3 tests, and then finally we'll be able to run the app and use it. Again, the really cool thing is that we have done this without actually running the app at all. So I haven't physically tested that the app is working. So let's do that for the first time. So let's launch the app, and it might crash because we don't actually have everything tested. I don't actually test that when I call finish in this activity that I call the handle result method in the main activity and so on. I have more tests for that, but those are a little trickier to do though. Alright, so we have pushed the code. I think it's launching it now. Okay, so choose color. Now what I'd like is a message that maybe says no color chosen, but let's choose one. Okay, I launch my other activity. I'm going to choose red, and it crashed. Lovely. So why did it crash? Let's see. Handle red click on null. Oh, duh. Yeah, so I injected it in the tests, but I forgot to instantiate the presenter on create. So since we're not using Dagger to inject this, I have to manually create a chooser presenter and pass the view to it, which is the activity, and that should satisfy that. Okay, so we still got an error. That's okay. Alright, so choose red, and I chose red. Choose another color, and I chose green. Choose another color, choose blue. Choose another color, choose red. Alright, now what happens when I rotate? When I rotate, my color choice disappears. So the last thing I want to do is add a singleton that'll hold on to that value, and we'll put it in the model. So the model in this case is going to be, we'll add a model interface. The singleton's just going to hold the model. So this is just going to be iModel interface, and it's going to get current color. Alright, so this method is the only method on this model where we get the current color, and I guess we should set the color. So set color, colors, color. So the model just sets, it just keeps track of the chosen color. So let's quickly create a model, Java class, we'll call it color model. Oh, no, it's a regular class, and I want to implement the iModel interface. So let's do that. Alright, so this class is going to keep some state, current color. We're going to return the current color, and set will set the current color. Alright, so if we use this, it will still get destroyed when we rotate, but the last thing we'll do is add a new singleton. So we'll just call it model singleton. It's going to be a singleton. This is kind of neat. Android Studio is going to create some singleton stuff for us. So I want to keep hold of the model. Now this isn't static. This is going to be part of the singleton instance. I'm just going to instantiate the chooser model here, or sorry, color model. This isn't great, and this is one of the bad things about the singleton, but for now, because I want to finish this video, it'll be enough. So we'll just make a method called getModel on the singleton instance, then returns the model. And then basically what's going to happen is anytime I am in onCreate, I'm going to call and get the model from the singleton. The singleton is what's going to maintain the state. It will only get killed when the app itself gets killed. So there's a few things we've got to watch out for, which I may or may not cover in this video. But let's go back to the presenter. And what we're going to do now is the presenter is going to take the model. So here's our magical model view presenter. So this dot model equals model, and create a field. All right, so where do we want this? Chooser presenter. Now we actually don't want the model in there. Sorry, backing out of that. This is the wrong one. We really only want the state in the chooser activity, not chooser, sorry, the main activity. So we'll go to the main activity and the main presenter. So the main presenter is going to get that model. Model, and I'm going to create the model here. Alright, and then so now that I get the model, basically what we're going to do whenever we set the result from choosing it in the other activity, I'm going to set it on the model, and then I'm going to somehow call it with the model when needed. So here, I'm going to do model.setColor, color. So whenever this gets set, I set it in the model. And what I can do now is, I'm thinking, let's see what I want to do. I want to add the new model here, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do singleton, chooser singleton, color singleton. What did I call it? Model singleton. Model singleton dot get instance. And what this is going to do is I'm going to get an instance of the singleton, and that is going to have a get model method on it. Or at least I thought it did. Let's go back to the singleton, and I've got this model method here, and I didn't make it public. Duh. All right, so let's do that. So we get the model. So this will, this will get called whenever the activity is created and after it was destroyed, except the singleton is going to keep that instance. So what I want to do is right after we create the presenter, and this is important, after we bind the view, we'll handle the chooser result by calling get current color from the model. All right. So now it's possible that get current color is null, and we get an error, but we get the error message. We should handle that. Let's see if this works. Let's rotate this phone. Okay. All right, so great. This is expected, right? Because initially, when I call this, the current color is null. So we can fix this in a few ways. One of which would be to add a new enum that is no selected color, and then set that as the current color. And let's go ahead and let's do that. So I'm going to go to colors. I'm going to go to none. I'm going to add this none color. Let's go to the presenter, and we'll add this case. Create missing switch. And my message is going to be view.get empty. Well, yeah, empty message. So we'll get an empty message. That's fine. Right now, it's going to be an empty string. I hesitated there because I might have wanted to put an empty string, but we'll keep it consistent. And in the future, I can just change the empty string to choose a color. All right, so we'll implement that method. And like I said, for now, we're just going to do an empty string. All right, so in my model, my singleton model, I want to first set public color model in the constructor. I want the current color to be colors dot none. All right, so initially there will be no color, and we shouldn't get that error message initially. So great. So we don't get the error message. I'm going to choose a color, green. I chose green. Now, importantly, this set a value on the model, and the model is stored in the singleton. The singleton will not die when I rotate, and the message will still be there. And I can choose another color, blue, and I will rotate again, and it'll still be there. So now I can choose a color and then back out, right? I didn't handle this. It should still be blue. So if I choose a color again, and then I kill this app, and then try to start it again, I should be fine. There, so no crash, which is good. But you notice I was back to the original state because the app died, the process itself died. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful. So the last thing I want to do is I gotta make sure that I update my tests too, right? I added some new parameters. So I'm gonna add my model, and I'm gonna mock that. And I'm not gonna bother making tests for the model yet, because I want to push this to GitHub or Bitbucket, and I don't want to push it when things are all broken here. So the last thing that you should do before you commit your code is, the app itself was working, but we want to make sure that unit tests pass, and then we can be happy with it. All right, so there we go. We'll run through these tests real quick, and then I want the main view tests should be fine, but let's test them just in case. All right, while that's testing, I'm gonna do a git. Okay, so at this point, I didn't, which is fine. So I am on a different branch than the main. So I'm gonna check the status. I'm gonna go ahead and add everything. All right. And my test passed, which is good. Let's test this guy. And I want to test the chooser presenter test too. We'll let this run. Okay, and then I'll run all of the chooser presenters. Great. All right, I'm going to commit finished app. All right. Now, what's important is that I'm not on the master branch. I'm going to recheck out the master branch. I'm going to merge in my changes from the other branch. My other branch is main activity feature. And I did a fast forward merge. It should, yep, there it is, fast forward. And now I want to push this to Bitbucket. So I'm going to go to Git, or I'm going to create a new repository, and it's going to be called color chooser. It's going to be private, description, sample MVP app. We'll turn on issues in a wiki, and we're going to choose Android and create the repository. Now, what this is going to do is give me a URL to push to, and that's what I want to do. So right here is the URL that I want to make sure that I commit to. So I'm going to do git. I have an existing project. I want to do git remote add, and I can just copy this. And I'm going to push. So git push -u origin master. All right, this is going to ask for my password. I'm going to pause the video and resume when I get the password. Okay, so I had a few issues with the password, but I have pushed to master. I just do a git push u origin master. Now anytime I need to update, I just will do the same process. Change some files, do a git add, then do a git push origin master. As long as I'm the only one interacting with the Bitbucket repository, then I shouldn't have any problems pushing because nobody else has pushed. Now, if you push from a different computer and then try to push from yet another computer, it may complain, and what you would do is you would just do a git pull first, merge in the changes, and then push. So let's go and look at the repository now. I should be able to refresh. I do need to add a README, so I will add this README right now. Let's call this sample app to demonstrate MVP and test-driven development. And then we can do, I think do this, 1, 2, 3 for code. Maybe just a single, nope, I can't remember, I think it's 3 bash. And then I can do git clone. These are just some instructions for how to start it up. So clone it, and then do a cd color chooser, and then do a Gradle build test, or no, what is it? Install debug, we'll install it, and then Gradle w test, we'll test. I think that's how, yep, okay, so that is the right markup. Let's save it. Sample app to demonstrate MVP test-driven development. Okay. So there we go. We are all